Hi, David. It's so nice to have you on the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. It's good to be on your show, Elisha. I'm
Yeah,
very glad to be here.
beautiful, beautiful. I love that. You know,
Mhm.
the previous time we tried so much to record our conversation, but due to the network, it was really terrible. I remember mentioning that
Hmm.
I was excited to have you on the show just as I am now, for some reasons. Because number one, I am a knowledge seeker. Because I believe that in order to transition from a chaotic situation to that of a beautiful one, it takes the application of knowledge, quality information. And the second reason why I'm excited to have David on the show is for the sake of the listeners now, the ones who are going to be benefiting from our conversation. Because I believe that there are some things that David knows that some of my audience needs to hear you say these stuff, directly from your mouth, in order for them to experience transformation. I firmly believe that. And lastly, that is me. You know, I trust that I am definitely going to learn one or two things, or even more, from your story, your insights, and your experiences. Okay, so for that reason, David, let us get started with your introduction and talk to us about your journey, how you got here. And afterwards, I've gotten some beautiful questions for you. Okay, David, over to you.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I guess my journey is uh, one of many years of service of the Lord Jesus. I grew up in a Christian home and made a commitment to the Lord at a very young age, but there have been rough times between then and now. Specifically, what I wrote about in the book that I published recently that deals with the problem of suffering. My family suffered intensely with very serious illness and for many years, and that forced me to think deeply about some of the difficult questions, and um, that's what I've written about. And questions like how could there be a good and all powerful God and yet a world so filled with suffering? Uh, so that's kind of where we find ourselves now. I think there are good answers to the questions, but it takes a little work and a little digging and to root those questions out, root the answers out rather.
Hmm. Okay, I feel like it's about to get more interesting now. Okay, so shall I start to question you? Are you ready for the questions?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Okay, okay. So let us begin first with this, should I say, perspective or a conclusion that Christianity is a crutch for weak people who simply
Hmm.
can't cope with the painful side of reality. Can you talk to us about that?
Sure. Yeah. So whether or not Christianity is a crutch would depend upon whether or not it's actually true. If it's actually true, then it's not a crutch, and if it's not true, then it is. But uh, and I would argue that it definitely is true, and I think we can demonstrate that in a number of different ways. But that argument was made popular by atheists throughout the ages, but especially the philosopher Sigmund Freud. He argued that because we can't handle this harsh reality that one day we're going to die and cease to exist, therefore we've invented this false religion that says we, get to live on after death. Uh, I would argue that he actually is the one who has a crutch, not the Christian. He can't handle the harsh reality that one day he will die and come face to face with a just and holy God. A God who will uh, hold him accountable for every choice that he's made, and you know maybe that's a little too scary for him, and so he's the one who has a crutch. He's invented this false religion of philosophical naturalism. All there is matter. There is no spiritual realm. There is no God, because he can't handle that harsh reality that there is a God, and this God is just and he is holy. Uh, so it all depends on who's right and who's wrong, right, as to who has a crutch. Uh, I would argue that the Christian worldview is very defensible. It can be defended very, very well.
I got that. I get that. You know, in my own opinion, okay, I wouldn't say it is for the weak, who wouldn't want to face reality or stuff like that. But you see, I think, how do I put it now? If we go back to the Bible, we realize that the ones who were first called Christians were those believers in Antioch. And I
Mhm.
think most of God's children are having issue with that word Christian. I told someone, I said, I prefer you to call me a child of God, like Jesus called us, or a
Yeah.
citizen of heaven, rather than
Mm.
you calling me a Christian. Because you see, I feel like Christianity over time has evolved to become a religion, because there are many folks in these things who have turned it all upside down, and they're just doing the opposite of what Jesus actually taught. You know? Okay, so I got your point. So we still have
Yeah, I
some
think you're.
questions here, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
very
yeah.
well said, Alexa. I totally agree with every bit of that. Very, very well said. Thank
Mm,
you. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, man. And you have a point there too. Okay. Now, for someone who let's say you came across someone and the person asks you, "Hey, David, is there really a God?" You know, let's say it's I've had series of experiences now where I think if God truly exists, He ought to come true for me, help me, or So now I want to ask you, hey, David, is there really a God? What would your response be to such person?
Well, yes, I would say that there absolutely is a God, and it is the one who is described in the Bible. And I believe we can know that for sure uh, because of, and this is going to sound a little complicated, but because of the philosophical impossibility of the contrary. You know, uh, if well, let's look at ethics for a minute first. Let's look at morality. Uh, how can we say that something like stealing is objectively wrong? Is it really wrong to take what belongs to somebody else, or is it just a matter of opinion? Uh, the thief might say, well, no, it's not wrong. I benefit from it. But the one being stolen from might say, well, yes, it is wrong. It's my opinion that it is wrong. But is it just a matter of opinion? Or is there really something objectively wrong about taking what belongs to somebody else? So without a transcendent lawgiver, we cannot have any transcendent law. So there has to be somebody above us who has the right to tell us both what to do, right? Or we're caught in a trap of subjectivity where morality is reduced to a matter of opinion. And this, transcendent lawgiver, this God, has to meet certain preconditions. He has to be a personal God, a sovereign God, an unchangeable God, for various reasons that we could get into. He has to be a God who has revealed himself to us. But anyway, you don't find a God who meets those preconditions anywhere other than in the Bible. So we can move from ethics to what, a fancy word, it's called epistemology, the branch of philosophy that deals with knowledge. And we can see that all the same things apply. Without this transcendent God, there's no such thing as objective rationality. And so truth becomes relative. You can have your truth, I can have my truth, and we can both be right. And right now, that's what the culture here in the United States teaches, even though it's very wrong. But no, there really is objective truth. So how do we account for that? We can't account for that without a transcendent lawgiver in the realm of rationality, right? So we could spend a lot more time, fleshing this out. But so, what if there is no God? What if there is no God and there is no objective rationality, objective ethics? Well, this would be a nihilistic world, a world with no absolutes. But the problem is you can't argue for that without depending upon the absolutes that you claim don't exist. So it becomes philosophically impossible for there not to be a transcendent lawgiver. We could also argue for the existence of the God of the Bible in other ways as well. There's all kinds of really good evidence. The world seems to be well designed. Well, that means it must have a designer. We have all the tons and tons of fulfilled prophecy in the Bible. in minute detail. We have, the Bible is an amazing book. It's written by, dozens of authors over a period of almost 2,000 years. People who didn't collaborate in 3 different languages, and yet there's no contradiction. It's all one consistent theme. So we have all these beautiful evidences as well. But I would argue from the philosophical impossibility, it's logically impossible for there to be no God. And I know I didn't make a strong enough case for that. I'm trying to condense 5 hours of philosophy into a little soundbite. But yes, I would say there definitely is a God. Oh, and if I could speak to, you said people have experiences, and they say, well, don't these experiences suggest there might not be a God? Like, for example, people who are suffering, people who are going through pain, and they say, well, where is God in this? That's a kind of argument I've heard often. If there were a God, why would all these, bad things be happening? But then when you read the Bible, you find that God promised that these things would happen. He promised this would be a world with suffering in it. It's a world filled with sin because people are sinners. They've rebelled against God. And as a result, God has cursed this world, Genesis 3 and Romans 8:20. So the argument really kind of goes like this. If first of all, I don't want to be insensitive to people's suffering and pain. If people are suffering, I don't want to belittle that in any way. But the argument really kind of goes like this. I can't believe in God because this world is exactly the way he said it would be. It's kind of it's not a very sound argument, not a very good argument.
I got that. Beautiful. Okay, let us get personal a bit, David.
Okay.
Can you talk to us about when Christ found you? When you became a child of God, born again. Can you talk to us about it?
Yeah, I sure can. I would love to. I became a child of God and was born again at a very young age. Like I had said earlier, I was raised in a home that served the Lord, and at a very young age, I became convinced that I am a sinner in need of salvation. But then my journey from there has been one of drawing closer to God. I went through some difficult years when I was a teenager where I made friends with people I shouldn't have, and was drawn off in wrong directions. But the Lord always drew me back. So my journey has been one of learning about God through studying His Word, but also experiencing Him. We need both, don't we, Elijah? We need to have the knowledge of God, through a study of His Word. But it's not enough just to fill our heads with knowledge, is it? We need to have a heart for the Lord and love the Lord and have a real relationship with Him. In fact, I would argue that the head knowledge without the heart for the Lord really is condemning. If we stand before God with no relationship with Him and He says, "Hey, you knew all about me," we're worse off than if we didn't know all about Him, I think. We really need both, don't we?
Yeah, we do. Oh man, that's a smart one. Because many Christians, or let me say some Christians actually, they know how, let's say, they are familiar with the scriptures from Genesis all the way to Revelation. But you see, they do not actually have a relationship with Him. They know what it says in each book and of the Bible now, but they struggle to maintain a relationship with Him. So you see, folks like that now, getting to listen to you speak now, your words will transform them. I believe so. So I'm so excited to have you say those words. That's a good one. Okay.
Well,
So
thank you.
yeah, man. So to bring this to an end, David,
okay,
what would you like to leave the audience with, like a final thought? And to those ones who would like to reach out to you, learn more about what you do, or maybe you said some things that resonated well with them and they would like to learn more. How can that be possible?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the last thing you said. Did you ask how they can get a hold of me? Is that what you asked?
Yeah, correct. Correct.
I guess the best way to get a hold of me would be via email. My email address is davidlibby87@gmail.com. And I know you have that address because you've emailed me. And my closing thought for people would be, to reiterate what we just said. I think that there are a lot of great ways to defend a biblical worldview. The Bible is filled with very important information. You talked in the beginning about how important knowledge is. We must have this knowledge, and our life should be a quest for knowledge, a quest to know more about God, to learn to know Him better through studying His Word, to learn how to defend the faith better, and that sort of thing. But all of it is absolutely useless without a real heart for the Lord, and that's what I'd like to leave people with. There are Christians here in the United States of America who make a hobby out of talking about theology and philosophy, and they love to get together and use all their big fancy words, and it's like an end in itself. It's like the pursuit of the knowledge is as far as it goes for them, and that's not far enough. You've got to have a heart for the Lord. You need to truly walk with Him and truly love Him and truly serve Him. So that would be my
Brilliant. I got
most
that.
important closing thought.
Yeah, and you see, it's actually a very important one to have a heart for the Lord and truly walk with Him. That's a deep one. I love that. So that's going to be the end of the show, David. Thank you for coming and thank you for blessing us with those powerful words, man. It means a whole lot. Thank you.
Well, your words were powerful too, so thank you. I loved what you had to say, so thank you very much.